uncle. The next relevant thought I had, like in awareness, was I was sinking feet first off the dock and bubbles were coming in front of my face. And I was like, oh my God, that's my air. I'm going to drown. Oh my God, I'm going to die. And the minute I said I was going to die, I just snapped out of my body. I was gone. But there
Wow.
was that sheer moment of panic, right? Like, oh my God.
Mhm.
Um, and then I was above everything. But I could only see the immediate area at this time. And it was really profound in the sense that I connected with each person's consciousness that was there. First, it seemed simultaneously, but yet this didn't. I went into my brother's consciousness, and he was thinking, "Can I swim to her faster? Across that expanse, or run the trail?" And I'm
Mhm.
laughing, going, "You can't do either very fast."
This is Dale Cross, and welcome back to another edition of the Soul Inspire podcast. This is the audio video podcast that features spiritually awakening souls to help inspire you on your own soul journey. On this episode, my special guest is Lorelei Drock. She has had 5 NDEs, the first at age 7, followed by others at ages 28, 35, 48, and 50. She has also experienced out-of-body, galactic ET, celestial, fae, Sasquatch, dragon and orb contact, a Kundalini awakening, connection to Christ consciousness, after-death communication, human and animal, shared death, and many other STEs, all on the SAI STE list. Interdimensional quantum experiences and paranormal mystical experiences. Lorelei, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm so happy to be here and hold space. Thank you.
Pleasure's all mine. All right. So let's get things kicked off. I always ask this question. Can you share a little bit about your spiritual background first before you get into all your amazing spiritual experiences?
Will do. I grew up in rural Wisconsin, and so it's kind of a German community. We were German Catholic. My father was raised Lutheran, but converted to Catholicism when he married my mother. But with having 5 kids dragging us to church every Sunday was a little hard. So um, it was very loosely based. I attended Catholic school one year, and
Mhm.
after that, I just took what they call rep classes, religion classes after school till I think about 8th grade. Um, but I don't remember ever really studying it in depth. And this is the thing that correlates with my near-death experience at 7. I came back telling my mother I was supposed to be a priest.
Hmm.
Like I knew I was supposed to speak about spirituality, and she's like, "Well, women can't be priests in our religion." I said, "Well, Mom, then that's not my religion. Nature is my church." I literally said that at 7. And she's like, "Okay," but
Wow.
she respected it. I spent hours. We had 191 acres, so I spent hours in nature. That was like my church.
Nice. Nice. It sounds like you were a wise soul, a wise old soul, even when you were young.
That's what she said. She says I could even before that, my NDE. She was like, "I can tell you nothing. You're an old soul."
Yes, yes. Cool. So you started out with a bit of a religious background, but then you kind of left that and went more towards inner inner spirituality, would you
Yeah, I mean,
say?
like I minorly studied, like very minorly, like Tao and, Druidism, pagan past and, Buddhism. Like I didn't really study them. I just was aware of them, through the years. Mostly because, like, for my NTEs, the things I would talk about, people are like, "Oh, that's all in Buddhism," and I'm like, "What's Buddhism?" So I looked into, their philosophies a little bit, but yeah, and as I said, I was always called, even by my spirit team, even from then, that they told me not to really read religious books or, like watch other speakers or these types of things, because they said that for what my purpose was, uh, everything needed to be unique to me. They didn't want it influenced, so that. it didn't affect my story or add to my story or
Mhm.
influence me in any way. So I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So did you want to go into the first NDE that you had? Is that the first significant experience that you had, would you say?
Yes, was my drowning at 7. Yeah, that particular day, since there's so much to talk about, I'll just do the quick points. But that particular day, my aunt and uncle had come over. They lived across the street. As I said, we lived on 191 acres. That used to be a quarry, so there was ponds. And we had fishing ponds, swimming ponds. They each had a purpose. And this particular day, my brother wanted to see if the bluegills were spawning, and so he asked my mom, and she was cooking supper. So she asked my uncle and my aunt, take him down there. He was 6 years older than me, so what would he have been, 13 at the time? So she didn't want me underfoot since she was cooking. She's like, take your sister too. So we went down there, and this was like the third and fourth pond. So it was about a mile into the property. One half had, where the fish would spawn. And in spring they were connected because the water levels were high. And the swimming pond was on the other. This is significant just because of the events that transpired. So my
Mhm.
uncle and my brother went to the first access where the bluegills were. My aunt took me down to look by the swimming hole, and there was a small pond next to that where all the frogs spawned. So I love to go there in the spring to see all the tadpoles. But I'd gone down this embankment to this makeshift pier that they had built it for swimming. And I was at the end of that. My aunt didn't come down there. She was afraid of water. She couldn't swim, which is relevant, of course. And so I'm out there, and I remember it had to be late afternoon because the way the light was reflecting off the water, and it was kind of lulling me, almost hypnotizing me. So I went to the other side of the right side of the pier. And it was at this time that my aunt asked if she could go check on my uncle. She always got like, she was known kind of having separation anxiety if he wasn't near her. It's just the relationship they had. And I always like to interject here because we were a farm family. Because people are like, at 7 years old, she left you alone on a pier. But we had a lot more responsibility, and we're like older for our age, I guess you could say, right? And I said I'd be fine. So she went to walk to check on my uncle. The next relevant thought I had, like an awareness, was I was thinking feet first off the dock, and bubbles were coming in front of my face. And I was like, oh my God, that's my air. I'm gonna drown. Oh my God, I'm gonna die. And the minute I said I was gonna die, I just snapped out of my body. I was gone. But there
Right.
was that sheer moment of panic, right? Like, oh my God.
Mhm.
Um, and then I was above everything. But I could only see the immediate area at this time. And it was really profound in the sense that I connected with each person's consciousness that was there. First, it seemed simultaneously, but yet this didn't. I went into my brother's consciousness, and he was thinking, can I swim to her faster, across that expanse, or run the trail? And I'm
Mhm.
laughing, going, you can't do either very fast, fast enough to
Mhm.
save me from drowning anyway. So I thought that it was kind of ironic that I thought it was so funny in spirit. Next I went to my uncle, and he was freaking out, like, oh my God, you left her alone. They're gonna blame us, all this stuff, right? And then I went to my aunt, and she was trying to figure out, like I said, she couldn't swim. She's trying to figure out how she can get down there without falling, much less hang on to the dock, because she was a little small, portly woman, and how she could reach me. She's thinking I can grab her hands or her hair. Maybe I can reach her if I hang on. If I don't do this right, we're both going to drown. I remember that thought, like that she was worried that they would both drown. Um, so obviously they had heard me fall in and all these other things, but like I said, I have no conscious memory of it. And I think it's really weird too, because usually when you fall in, it's like head first if you were to tip. So how did I end up feet first? That's the thing that still bothers me to this day. And and I could see my hair just like going out under the water, and my whole body sinking once I was above it. Once I checked on them, and then it's like I was higher and I could see for miles. And I saw my mother back in the kitchen cooking and wondering, like I connected with her thoughts. And she was like, wonder what they're doing. Did they catch anything? When will they be back? And she was like making chili, I think, and chopping up vegetable. But as soon as I knew she was okay, I like completely left the venue, so to speak. And then I was in this place, and I've gone to similar spaces in my others, but um it was all like this clouds. It was like this mist I was a part of. And I was standing in front of this big, which is like up above me, this big archway. Um, and I could tell there was someone, like a guide with me, but I couldn't see them and I couldn't see myself. It just was like this knowing. And through this huge archway there was this magnificent light, like an LED light times 1,000. It was so white, I thought I'd burn my eyes, and then it went to like a bright yellow, then a deep amber to orange, but it filled your whole consciousness. That's the best way I could put it. And there was this indescribable parental love that you can't even feel here. I don't even know. My love for my children, but and you can feel it here, mind you, through meditation or connection. I will clarify that. But it's not normally a state of love that we know here on a
Mhm.
regular basis. Um, and there was just such peace. It's like everything was stripped away. Um, and I remember this, like, I could kind of make out an outline of this being in this light coming through this portal and having this conversation. And it seemed like forever. And I know I was shown things, but I don't remember them. I know I was shown my life because we argued a lot. Like we went back and forth what felt like eternity for real. That's the only way I could say it in earthly time. Because they're like, telling me I should go back. I needed to go back. And I was like,
Mhm.
no, you can't make me go back to that. There's no way. I don't want, no, I don't want that. No way. Um, and then there was all of a sudden, it's like the only thing I can relate it to is the Truman Show, because this was all
Mhm.
telepathic. But then this voice boomed, like or like as if it was a PA, but almost in your head that said, "You must go back. You have more to do." Is this deep male voice, and I knew it was authoritative. Like I was just like, "Okay, crap,"
Mhm.
like there was no arguing with this voice. But I remember thinking, "Well, you can make me go back to my body, but you can't make me get in it." For real.
Okay.
So my next thing after that conscious memory is me with my body, and they had pulled it up onto the embankment and laid it on its side, to see if I had water in my lungs. But I don't recall any water in my lungs or any ill effects. But
Okay.
I don't recall reconnecting with my body. Like I stayed with my body, but I wasn't like, I don't know how to explain this, but I wasn't like completely immersed in it, if that makes sense. And I believe they said I didn't really talk to the next day. And I remember we had an old Victorian farmhouse, and I was sitting in a chair, an old captain's chair, like they had at the ends of each Victorian dining table.
Mhm.
And it was against by our stairwell. And I remember talking to my brother and telling him why did you think you could do that? You can't swim or run fast. And his face just turned white and his jaw dropped. And I do remember like later after that, or him getting my mom, and I'm like, well, mom, I died. Like I knew I had died even at 7, which is really odd to me. I think this was right before or right after. I think my grandfather might have died right after that. So I almost feel like it was a way because that was so traumatic for me. It really traumatized my childhood. He was like the only one that interacted with me, stood up with me, spent time with me, like really saw me, you know.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so I think kind of it was for that reason to understand death and all of these things. And after that, things got really weird. It was almost like being in a timeline transplant, like the way my family was towards me and just the way I saw the world changed abruptly. I mean, I came from, a farming family, they killed animals. I mean, they hunted, they partied, they were Germans love their beer.
Right,
We
right.
had free, barbecues with over 300 people in live bands. I mean, that was their life. And I just did
Mhm.
not fit in. They'd even tease me saying I was the mailman's kid. What the heck happened? Who are you? you
Oh,
know?
okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And even kids in my high school were like, you're weird, but in a good way. And I would have premonition dreams. I'd know when people were preparing to leave their bodies. Later, I knew when people were pregnant and what sex they were going to have, like all these abilities. My mother really supported me through all that. And it got where, like,
Mm.
she'd be the intermedium. And later, she would just say, Lori says, and they'd be like, okay, because it happened to be right too many times. So, but it was a big responsibility at a young age because I tell people, you got to go see a doctor right now or things like that. And
Mm.
even if they did, sometimes the doctors wouldn't listen and they would pass. And you'd feel so responsible. You didn't understand it like 8 and 9 years old. Like, I told them, why did fix anything? You had this whole, there wasn't books or people. The first person I ever found talking about any of this stuff was Sylvia Brown, because she was on TV, and my mom's like, hey, listen to this lady, like she's like but that wasn't even until I was like maybe 20. So anyway, that was my first experience with the the afterlife, so to speak.
So very interesting. So you said that there was this booming voice that said you have to go back.
Mhm.
Was that a scary sounding voice, or did you still feel the unconditional
No,
love within that
yeah,
voice?
it just felt like you know, it felt like a father figure, like an authoritative father figure that loved you and
Oh, okay.
understood where you're
Yeah.
going, but you
Hmm.
didn't. That
Right,
makes sense.
right, right.
Yeah, it
Okay,
wasn't
so
scary in that way or anything.
yeah.
It was just like I knew there was no argument in it, and I was almost like now if I were to describe it, I'd be like, dang it, like I knew there was
Right.
like like a teenager told it has to go finish his chores before it can have ice cream.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes. And
I
that
was not
happened
happy.
to you. Did that happen to you? You said when, and that happened to you, you said when you were 7?
Yes.
Okay. And then it sounds like your mother has been a great support for you.
She was. She
It's
still
almost
does
like
from
you
the
have
other
a,
side. There's a long story about that as well, but
yeah,
yeah.
it seems like you have like a really good some kind of soul agreement with like soul. I guess we have agreements with everyone, but you have like a really, you had a good one with her,
hmm
like to support you, right?
hmm
Which is great. So, all right, so let's go back. So you said when you were, was it 20, you came into contact with Sylvia Brown?
Yeah, that's when I kind of started seeing her at talk shows. I think I did get her book, but I've still yet to read it all.
Oh,
The
okay.
other side and back, and it made me understand a few things. Like I was like, oh, that's what I learned in my thing. Like it brought back all this remembrances and stuff. I was like, okay, there's something to her. I mean, I know a lot of people are skeptical, but like it
Yeah.
can't be right all the time. And this is what I tell people, because of the fact that timelines are always switching. Every choice switches things.
Yes.
But anyway,
Yes.
that's why a lot of times I'm like, I might have psychic abilities, but I don't do the psychic stuff
Right, right. Because when
per
you
se.
predict someone's future, you're only reading their current vibrational escrow at the moment,
Exactly.
right? So they're
Yes.
going on a certain track, but that can change
Yep.
according to
Every
their
decision.
free will, right? Every decision changes. Yes, I just interviewed a woman named Cynthia Sue Larson. Are
hmm
you familiar with her? She does the quantum jumping. She's a
Ah,
quantum jumping expert.
oh,
So,
awesome. Yeah,
yeah,
I do a lot of portal and vortex work. I do a lot of work in the quantum field. So I
there
am
you
familiar
go.
with that.
You're
Yes.
familiar with that. Yeah. So she
Mhm.
says exactly like you say. She says that every
Yep.
time you make a decision, you're switching timelines.
Yep.
You're opening up
Exactly.
a new portal, so to speak. So, okay, so take me back to now you said that you've had a number of near-death experiences.
hmm
What do you attribute that to?
Well, the fifth one
Because
was
some most
December
people just
19th.
have one, right?
I know. But I also allowed a lot of soul trauma to collect, and some of it
Oh.
was for cleansing and for
Hmm.
healing. Like my second one was for that and other different things. But part of it by my fifth one, they were like, they literally said to me, there's only death because you believe in it. It only exists because you believe in it, in the sense that there was a whole like wealth of information with that one thing, if that makes sense. And my understanding was like it was like a you as a collective. We keep creating death because we feel that's the only way back home, the only way to connect, to feel connected. And so, they kept telling me, like, you don't have to keep creating these death experiences to come home.
Right. So
So I
just
think
for
there was a lot of that. Yeah.
okay, so for our audience out there, you don't need to have a near-death experience to experience some of the things that Lorelai has experienced. You can have
It
spiritually
that's
transformative experiences as well, right? So, okay,
right.
so
And
you said you've had five, sorry, you've had
yes.
five
And
near-death
it's
experiences?
interesting you say that, because one of the things that I wrote that went viral that started all this interview process was I wrote a thing called You Don't Have to Die to Learn to Live. The 10 things I wish I told younger me. And my daughter's like, she's like, I'm feeling you need to put that in the NDE group. Ned's it's the largest one on Facebook. I'm like, okay. And it went like mini viral. And But it's true. You do not have to die to experience any of these things or connection to source. So I
Yeah,
just wanted to reiterate that. Yeah.
yeah, because you can also get through meditation, right? You can have a taste of
Mhm,
that.
mhm. An
And
intention. Yeah.
intention. Okay. Did you want to? I know you've had quite a few. Well, you've had five. And for the sake of time,
Mhm.
while we would like to hear them all, we would like to hear just like a little nutshell of
All
each
right.
one. So you
I
you
could do
gave
that.
us
Yeah.
the first one, which was you drowned when you were 7. Go to the next
Mhm.
one now. What
Yeah,
happened
and the
there?
rest are fairly short.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So the second one was at 28. Um, I had a visitation from my deceased grandmother telling me that the baby I was carrying, it was our first pregnancy, wasn't mine to keep, and there'd be others, and that I'd be okay. But this baby wasn't mine to keep. And she showed me the clinic where I normally go and the calendar on the wall. And yes, that day I ended up in the ER, miscarrying. I had to have an emergency DNC, which I stopped breathing and was bleeding out. And the doctor said he almost lost me. And I had all the after effects, but not much memory of what happened, other than I was told in later experiences that I went home for that healing so I could actually have more children, that my body wasn't in alignment. And which is interesting because, the autopsy said the same thing. My body wasn't interconnecting like her systems as a baby. So then we had a rainbow baby, which I had a vision of. And yeah, so we ended up having 3 more children. That was my second. My third one, I lost blood flow to my brain, and I staggered back and hit my head against the door jamb and collapsed and seizured and stopped breathing. And I went to the place I call Heaven City. I was there on a marble bench with my mother, but I knew that energy was not my mom. And I called it out on it. And she's like, well, it was for your benefit to keep you calm. Da, da, da. But she told me that I had done enough. Like I had put it in a positive balance, that I didn't need to go back. But remembering a previous life that I had died on my current daughter at the same age, there's a whole big thing with this. I chose to come back. I'm like, no, my daughter needs me. I'm not doing that to her again. And my daughter even has memories of that lifetime struggling, to survive, since the male was the provider in that age and time. It was the 1800s. Um, so the other thing significant with that one is where I was killed in that lifetime bothered me since I was born. I had multiple tests. They couldn't really find a reason for it. After I forgave these people and had that remembrance, it just we do carry over cellular memory from other lifetimes. And I just wanted to give testimony to that. Um, my fourth one was a little more involved, and the more um, learning was brought back from it. I want to say in between there, that is when I had the 2019 connection Christ consciousness in the Kundalini, where I was shown like I have been with Earth and incarnating on Earth since it was a thought form. And they showed me like the magma as it developed, and I came in as the elements of wind and water, and just how everything created and how free will took us down from the frequency of Eden, and how we were responsible. And I promised I would fix it and speak my truth and everything they showed me. And
Right.
all of this. And it was a very profound experience. I learned that everything was sentient, and that's when the 3 trees I call the sentinel spoke to me and were guiding me about the creation of the earth and how they've watched over us.
Yes.
And then the fourth death experience, I was having some autonomic nervous system issues the week prior. But I'd also wrote in Ned's NDE group on a meme. Somebody posted lame ways we died, and a lot of people were posting, well, this is how I want to go next time. And I made the joke I wanted to go like Grandpa, not the passenger screaming in his car. If you're familiar with that joke, Grandpa went in his sleep. Well, not even a week later, I died in my sleep, autonomic nervous system. I stopped breathing. And I went straight to that clouded space, but this time it was my like whole soul family and team. And so I did see my twin flame and my friend, and I knew my husband and my daughter were over here, but those are the only people I could see and like who they are to me. Now the rest I could tell were there or they looked iridescent, but I couldn't make out who they were. in my experience, because maybe they're not incarnated, I'm not sure. But this was a simultaneous thing. He was yelling at me as far as my twin flame. I felt like I got called to the principal office. He was like, at your level of light, things manifest best. You have to watch your words, your thoughts, your intention, everything. And they had been up until then. I just didn't really put it together. And meanwhile, this other friend, this is a shared death experience for this reason. This other friend was telling me if I wanted this body, I had to get back in it now. Like it had been like almost dead too long, like I had stopped breathing too long. And it was weird because we called it a vehicle. And I even said, like, how do you start this thing? And I even said, like, systems check, like, because I couldn't get my body to move once I was in it. And all of these things, like I said, for sake of time, I'm not going to get into, but it was very painful restarting my body. But I did learn so much on the power words. And I know there was like a test in order for me to come back because I hadn't been mindful. But I don't know the details of it. And this is where it's shared, because that twin flame next day was like, I know you died. I felt your energy leave the venue. There was this test. I had a drink of your body. What happened to you? And the other friend was like, I saw you dead in your bed. What happened? So I knew it really happened. Like, I was like, I'm scared. Even though I've had all these experiences, I'm still very skeptical. Like, oh, is that a dream? Was that this? But no, it was not. Especially like I shook for 20 minutes after, and being in the medical field, I think I was probably in shock. And then this December 19th, I thought I was so done with NDEs. I was like, I did everything. I'm doing everything you told me. And part of the agreement, of me coming back and agreeing to come back was that I needed to speak my truth. And they told me my voice carries healing frequencies, and I carry source code and light codes that they would be giving me more to either help others activate, to do different things, to realign DNA and various different things. That was my agreement. If you want to come back, you're going to do this. It's like Lorelai story doesn't matter anymore. You're coming back as like an agent. I don't know what you want to call it, but this is what you're here for. And I made that agreement to come back. So I thought I was doing everything. So I was like, what is this about? And so that when I went to the black void, I was just in this expansive black void, and I've never been to that void. I've always met people, something, and I was just there with as consciousness. And then I'm like, oh, like, what am I doing here? Did I die? Okay, why am I here? Where's my body? And then this voice, and I spoke about that earlier, was telling me, you're here, because you keep creating death, and there's only death because you believe in it. And you need to let go of this. And they gave me all this information about why the collective, because we want to keep having experiences and all these different things about why we've created death in this venue. So as soon as all of that happened, I was back with my body, had to restart it again. And this time it was somewhat less painful, maybe because I knew what to expect, but it wasn't fun. But those are predominantly my larger experiences, other than when I was oh, I forgot to say, which was really interesting on that 2019 experience. My daughter is also, my whole family actually has had NDEs and other experiences. That's another weird thing. But I had come inside after all that occurred, and my daughter was like, she literally backed away from me. She's like, who are you? You're not my mother. Your energy is totally different. You're not, who are you? And it took me a while to convince her what happened to me, and that like it shifted my whole energy and everything else. I mean, and she wasn't a child. I mean, this happened when she was like 18, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was interesting. And I had one when I was like 35, where I like, it felt like everything was closing out. And I was laying down on a futon, and I was looking up at the wall, and all of a sudden there was this huge honeycomb, glowing golden honeycomb grid. And then there was like waves of energy going through of I think pink and blue. And no matter what I did, it wouldn't go away. And this went on for over 20 minutes more. And then I realized I couldn't even move my body. I tried to lift my arm. It's at that point my husband took me to the ER, ran tons of tests, couldn't find anything wrong with me, but I couldn't remember even who I was for over 2 hours.
That's
And
bizarre.
and my whole personality shifted after that. So and it was a very trying time. I had 3 young kids. My mother had just died a few years before. And I think I was kind of like at a soul end, so I don't know if I had a switch or what happened, but those are some of the the more profound experience. So thank you for letting me share
Wow.
some.
Yeah. So you said the shared near-death experience you had was one with your twin flame. Did I hear that correct? That would be like a shared because he knew that you were going. He,
Yes.
okay, all right. And
And my friend who, like I said, saw me laying dead in my bed that night, like she had, I don't know if she dreamt it or had a vision of it. Yeah.
okay, that's okay. So that, all right, very interesting. Now, when I looked over your bio, it also talks about other things. So in 2019, you had the connection with Christ consciousness. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's, yeah.
Okay, and then, but you've also had other experiences like with orbs and dragons and Sasquatch. Tell me about that
Yeah.
stuff. Something like that, right?
Yeah, that started after my first near-death experience. My family had some experiences like with these giant orbs, but they um they attached that to like ET or galactic. They weren't aware that when Sasquatch travel interdimensionally, they use orbs as well. And I had this experience. This is relevant. In like I want to say it was mid 30s. I was selling at a powwow about an hour away from the property I grew up on. And this really, I mean, elderly, I don't know how he got around, Indian came up to me in full regalia and he had these 5 stones in his hand. And he asked my husband and then me to hold them and he gave us almost like a riddle of reading. It was like a riddle. But then as he was walking away, he said he was talking about the property I grew up on with, now I understand because he was in tune of that I grew up there. But I think that's why he was interested in me. And he said that it used to be their land and there's a huge paranormal vortex on it and that his people were aware of it. And I'm like, wait a minute. Oh my God, I grew up there. And he gave me this side because he's like, that weird coy look. And he walked away and we chased after, we couldn't find him anywhere. He was nowhere there. So it's one of these weird spiritual experiences. But that only validated all the strange things because people thought our house was haunted because there was always things moving, footsteps. Our dogs would chase spirits. My dad could see them. I found that out later. So that's why my mom didn't really question my abilities, even though my dad didn't want to own up to his. Um, so anyway, some of the ones I remember with Bigfoot was like one night they came at the house and they were like pounding to get our attention on the side roof on the kitchen. I remember my dad telling me, to just get down and just be quiet and they'll move on. So that's what we did. And when we went out the next day, there was because we had a gravel and clay driveway, there was huge footprints all out there. So that validated it to me, as well as later, my brothers, when they were about 12, started trapping, and something, and no bear is this tall, knocked down all the trees. And I learned this about Sasquatch later, where they break it towards the road. Um, so they broke where every trap was. They cleared the meat out of the trap, and they wiped all the trees. And my brother took me to see them, so I did see them for myself. But I had this whole some other paranormal experiences where I don't know if I was out of body or just walking, where this being was telling me like my purpose and why I came to Earth and all of these things and who I was. But he's like, your parents are alien. Well, this was late early 80s. That's back when they were having the movies, the body snatchers and stuff. So I thought aliens had literally taken over my parents. I was freaked out when I like became more aware. Like the next day I'm like for a couple weeks straight, I was like watching everybody like
Right,
but
right.
now I understand it, and in a quantum hypnosis session, I said that being was the All Father. And when asked further, I said the Father of all that is. And since then, in visions and meditations, the Sasquatch has come through to me saying he is the Father. So I don't know if it's the same being or not. Um, but I thought that was very interesting of and that they were telling me all of the things I was supposed to do and why I came here and that I was the alien.
Okay.
um and I've had other ET experiences. Like one was where there, and I had this validated, which these are all the stuff that defy my consciousness, so I don't really like talking about them. Like I once saw when I was like between 8 and 10 as well, like the sky tear open and this giant football field size ship come through, and there was like these light discs that were out of it, like as other ships, but then there was these other ships trying to attack it that looked like what we created supposedly later, like the stealth jet firing at it. And
Mhm.
and I remember this whole big thing. And I remember looking up at my mom and saying, well, are they going to erase our memory again, or are they just going to kill us this time? And I didn't mean the galactics. And so that was an interesting thing. But how I got that validated was during that same time, a friend of the family was a police officer, and he told me him and his partner responded to a call of a UFO of the same description around the same time period. But that they didn't put it on paper because they would lose their job.
Oh, of
But he wanted
course.
me to know I wasn't crazy in the least.
Okay, well,
There was
that's
lots
good.
of experiences like that. Yeah.
Right, right, right. And what about the dragon? How does that play in?
Well, this is a little different because I didn't meet a physical dragon.
Oh,
In that sense, I hugged a tree. I was called to hug this tree, and this is very odd. But as soon as I did, this huge eye opened up to me, and it was a dragon eye, and it was like, "Thank you for seeing me," like or awakening me. And I literally jumped back about a foot and screamed, and all my friends were like, "What?" My husband was like, it happened on the same woman's property that was part of my fourth near death experience. And they're like, "What the heck happened?" And I'm like, "Oh my god, this eye." Well, later, I was really called to get the Lemurian deck. It's an oracle deck beyond Lemuria. And I had it for a while and I was called to it, but I never really went through it. Well, my daughter was going through because she had seen a lot of the same artwork in her visions and different things. And it's supposedly all channeled artwork. And she went through the deck and there was the same exact eye. It was like, the dragon to the priestess. And I think the name of that card is called Awareness.
mm,
Well,
okay.
after that, I started when I was doing sessions and even for myself, seeing these dragons coming in and dragon energies and dragons wanting to work with people and just all this knowledge about dragons, which, I always wondered if they existed because there's so much folklore on it. But I understood that they were like the earth guardians and some of the first elementals ever created, kind of like with the angels. And so ever since I've been able to activate that, have contact with them, because they're more interdimensional beings, just like the Sasquatch. It's very rare you see them in the physical. Same with the Fae. My daughters have seen Fae. I've seen like inklings of Fae, but
What
they've
what is
only known
Fae? What
Fae.
is Fae? What's that? What
Oh,
is
like the
Fae?
Fae world, like gnomes, fairies,
Oh, I see. Okay.
um, oh, what do they call those? The pixies. And
Okay.
the Fey world, I've come in contact or had conversations with them through
Mhm.
what I do, opening these portals for a lot of people. And all these things I never would have believed until I experienced them. But there's so much more to reality because it's limitless than we believe or experience on the daily, just because we construct these little boxes of what can and cannot be possible.
Right.
And once those are blown away, it's yeah, you think you're going a little crazy till you meet all these other people that know the same things you do, and it's like, okay, well, maybe it's not so crazy.
Right, right, right. So you also have a number of services that you offer. Did you want to talk about a couple of those?
Well, I do what I call session work. The, my spirit team gave me the term divine conduit, which I believe anybody can be, and I teach how to do that. But mostly, I call myself a remembrance guide because our body knows how to heal itself. I'm a the term medical intuitive, and I've done some psychic surgery that was validated by MRIs and medical tests, but our body, I found out through an expansion after getting my Reiki attunements. I'm a Reiki master teacher. Um, the body has various organs and they are separate consciousnesses and they have an energy agreement to be our body, and they interwork with each other, and they literally have voices. Some of them were like grumpy old men, some of them giggly children. I mean, they have these personalities. Like, I remember once one of them was really angry. She needs to eat more fruits and vegetables, and it was this grumbly old man voice. And I was like, "Oh," you know,
Interesting.
but I've come to have this understanding of the human body, that they're all energy agreement. And everything is really here, agreeing to be. So that's when things break down, when those they no longer wish to experience that a certain thing. So that was very interesting for me. So I do that. I have all the labels because I have all the clair abilities. It's like a mediumship and intuitive, and like I mentioned, I do all the activations, alignment, attunement. Um, Soul retrieval, soul attachment removal. And one of the things that I do that is different from a lot of people is I do vortex and portal work, connecting people to their other incarnations. In my experiences, I learned that they're all going on at once, and there's various abilities, and there's this soul cloud that has all of this knowledge. And what I do is connect them to the ones more consciously, so that they can be more aware and use those abilities in this lifetime.
Very, very good. Very wonderful. I've really appreciated chatting with you on the show today. This is very interesting. Now, if you, we always wrap things up like this. If you could share one pearl of wisdom with everyone in the world, what would it be?
You are your own creator. I'm not sure in that sense. I have learned that through my experiences that everyone creates their own timeline by the choices and thoughts and intentions and words they use. You're constantly, they've even showed it to me in real time, like a Rolodex. You're constantly choosing by every choice you make.
Mhm.
So for me, and how I say to live in the divine flow and let go and detach from the outcome, is to always choose the most loving, benign choice that you can.
Very nice. Very, very good. And if people want to, and what's did you say you have a main offer? What is your main offering? Because I know you have your license in a number of modalities. Is there a central one that you do for sessions with clients or?
Well, I have one that's called remote guided healing session, and that includes whatever spirit wants to bring through for you. But I also have like medical intuitive and Reiki and all these other
Hmm.
things available as well through my Calendly site. So, but
Okay,
you can
very
find
good.
everything on my main website. Yeah.
Okay, and what is your website?
Oh, it's just lorelaidrock.com. It makes it very
LorelaiDrock.com. Very good. And we'll make sure that we link it in the bottom.
yeah.
So, so if anyone wants to reach out to you, they can, because we've got
Oh,
the link. All right. I've
that's,
really appreciated having you today on the show, Lorelai.
thank you. And it was great meeting you and getting to know you and holding this space. I'm always so thankful for these spaces that allow us to share. So thank you.
Yes, I appreciate your light. Thank you so much for sharing.
You're
And that
so
is
welcome.
another edition. That is another edition of the Soul Inspire audio video podcast. See you next time. The Soul Inspire podcast is brought to you by DaleCross.net. Discover the freedom, bliss, and ecstasy within you. At DaleCross.net, I can help connect you with your soul's purpose, passion, and mission. Your soul signed up for something great. Discover what it is with the tools I offer. Book a free one-on-one consultation now at DaleCross.net and live your greatness.